but I remember the time when there was a conquistador out of the ring, the one that's so jealous that he can't stand it. Yeah, you came in there with your poses, yeah, but you made a big idiot out of yourself, yeah.
This might be crazy to hear. I really enjoy Star Wars, but I can't say I love it. I just saw Rise of the Skywalker, and if I had to describe it, I'd use words like boring, uninteresting, uncreative, predictable. Let me find some new words. Lifeless, soul-crushing, life-sucking, dire, grievous. While I do have fond memories about Star Wars, reading the extended lore, playing many of the video games as a kid and watching the cartoons, it just never connected with me like the original Lord of the Rings trilogy or even the Harry Potter movies. This might be blasphemy, but when someone who has never seen anything Star Wars related asks me if they need to see it, I always say, no, I don't think they're must-watch movies. There are several series I think are way better and just more consistent in their quality. I already mentioned two of them. Hell, the John Wick trilogy is better than the Star Wars franchise. I'd much rather watch that than Star Wars if I'm being honest, or just go on a Scorsese or Tarantino bend. That would be way more enjoyable. Throw in the first couple Die Hard movies, Indiana Jones, Rocky, Mission Impossible, the Dark Knight trilogy, the Cornetto trilogy, Pirates of the Caribbean, Toy Story, Iron Man, It Man, Bourne Identity, the Dollars trilogy. All of these are better and way more consistently good than the Star Wars films have ever been. When it comes to Star Wars, of the 11 movies in the franchise, only maybe 3 of them are actual good movies. Those being A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Force Awakens. Return of the Jedi is just okay. It undoes most of the character arcs just so they can do it again, and it doesn't feel the same. It just feels like a dumbed down version of the 2 previous movies. The prequels are insanely boring. Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is the best of the 3, but that's still not at all that great. The best thing about the prequels is Palpatine. He's the only actor having any fun. It's kinda just mediocre. And for those who think the prequels are better than the new trilogy, you're just wrong. Yeah, this new trilogy isn't great at all, but at least the acting is better, the set pieces, the cinematography, maybe the writing is better. The prequels are bad, okay? So what if they were different and original? That doesn't mean they're good. And don't get me started with Rogue One, okay? I hate Rogue One. I hate when Star Wars tells stories that are in the middle of an already finished timeline, okay? We already know how this film is going to end, and to me, that takes out all the joy in seeing it. We know they're going to die. We know they're going to get the Death Star plans. We didn't need to see it. And so much of Rogue One is just references to better Star Wars films. None of the characters are interesting. The lead is way too boring to carry the movie. The best thing about this movie is Darth Vader's cameo. That's it. This felt completely unnecessary. I hate it. I just find Rogue One to be really boring. It had some cool ideas. A war movie in space sounds like it'd be a blast. It wasn't. Someone told Forrest Whitaker he was in a Shakespeare play. I don't know why he's acting the way it is. He's supposed to be a guerrilla general, not a drama teacher. Solo is just a mess. It expands on things we didn't need to know or didn't care about Han Solo, and it didn't need to be made. We know everything we need to know about Han. What was the point of his origin story? We didn't need it, we didn't want it, and you gave it to us. Why? I thought the Darth Maul cameo was neat. It was dumb, especially now that we aren't going to get anything from it because Solo was so poorly received and so I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop.
Just like Rogue One, this is so boring. Childish Gambino was just doing a Lando impression. Not a bad one, but still. The guy that's supposed to be Han Solo is so uncharismatic. I'm starting to view Emilia Clarke the same way I view Keanu Reeves. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're fantastic people. I'd love to meet them, maybe have a drink with them. I'm glad they're getting work, but why are they getting work? Is it because they're pleasant to be around? Because it sure isn't because they're acting. Let's talk about the new ladies of Star Wars for a second. Jyn Erso. She's boring. She has no charisma. No, it's not because she's a woman. Everyone in Rogue One is boring and lacks screen presence, besides Forrest Whitaker, who's in the wrong movie. Kira. Emilia Clarke, I love you. You seem like a great person. I'd love to grab a beer with you, but damn, I do not care to see you on my screen. Kira is just kinda there. Zora Bliss. She doesn't do anything. She looks neat, I guess, but I don't really care for her. General Holdo. This movie goes out of its way to make her so unlikable. Why? Was it so you could give us that twist that she really wasn't an asshole and had a plan? Because that's dumb. If we had cared more about her, her sacrifice would have been made so much more impactful. And as dumb as her death is, being that it flies in the face of all the logic and lore surrounding hyperspeed, warp speed, whatever the fuck it is, it's still probably the coolest death, the coolest thing in all of Star Wars, but you gave it to someone that we don't care about. Imagine if that death was given to Finn, or Rose, or even Leia. Speaking of Rose Tico. I actually love Rose. She's cute, she wants to honor her sister's death, and she's the reason why Finn learns to fight for something other than himself. She gets a bad rap because of that dumb shit she did at the end of The Last Jedi. I think it's fucked up that she gets written out of Rise of the Skywalker. She deserves so much better. Rey. I actually love Rey. I just think she wasn't written very well in the later movies following Force Awakens. Daisy Ridley is a talented actress. She's got the charisma. She's got the freaking, she's got the physicality. It's just unfortunate that what they did to her character, it's bad. It's way too obvious that both J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson had completely different ideas of what to do with her, and it's really unfortunate that they couldn't come to a satisfying compromise. Cara Dune. I love her. I'll talk more about her in my Mandalorian video, so wait for that one, but just know, that's bae. And for the other characters, I like Finn, Poe, Rey, BB-8, Kylo Ren, General Hux, Snoke, even fucking Boba Frick. Their chemistry's awesome. They seem like they care about each other, but the writing keeps leaving them with nothing to do and little to no character development. My biggest problem with Star Wars is that there is so much lore and history. About 10,000 years worth, if I'm not mistaken, yet the films only focus on the Galactic Civil War era. It's really boring at this point. There is so much more than just the Empires, the Rebels, and the Skywalkers. There's the Mandalorians and the Mandalorian Wars, the Night Sisters, the old Sith Empire. Why have these only been relegated to books and video games? And if you're still watching, you might still be surprised that I love Force Awakens so much, okay? It's because it's so much
like A New Hope. They weren't trying to hide that fact. It was similar in plot points and story beats. I thought that was the point, to give us something familiar, to ease us back into this world that the prequels kinda ruined. Then they hit us with the mess that was The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is as messy as a 100-person bukkake session, but you already know that. But do I think it's terrible? No, not at all. It did some really interesting things, like Luke forsaking the Jedi, and that's interesting as hell. Kylo Ren's struggle was engrossing. I actually cared about him, and him constantly being conflicted with whether he should go to the dark side or stay in the light. Kylo Ren's the best character in this franchise, and he was wasted in favor of the much less interesting Rey. I don't hate Rey. I loved her in Force Awakens. Then they took all of her character and personality away in the next two movies. I actually like quite a bit about The Last Jedi, but there is an equal amount of things I hate about it also. Like how they make Kylo and Hux completely incompetent to the point where we can't take them seriously as villains. Its whole side plot with Finn and Rose and Poe's whole thing, it all felt forced, and they all failed, and it meant nothing. Which is why my father and I both found the movie to be very okay at best. But I can honestly say that I enjoyed The Last Jedi far more than Rise of Skywalker. At least Last Jedi took some risks that unfortunately mean nothing in the following movie, even some of the more interesting aspects.
Say what you want about The Last Jedi, but I appreciate that it tried to tell a mature story. Rian Johnson is a great writer and director, proven by Looper and Knives Out. I just think it was a bad decision to have him make the second film in the main timeline. Why not have him or J.J. Abrams do the whole trilogy? Rian Johnson would have made a great trilogy, I believe that, or at least let him direct and write a one-off side story. I'm sure it would have been creative. Why not do what Marvel does? Have several different directors and writers, but have one main person in charge to make sure everything makes sense and flows together. It's clear this trilogy didn't have that. J.J. Abrams wanted to make his movie, Rian Johnson wanted to make his movie, then J.J. ignored what Rian did and just made what he wanted anyway. This didn't have to be this way.
Rise of Skywalker is trying to be the fun, epic end to the saga, but because nothing in The Last Jedi mattered, it had to be two movies in one and doesn't earn any of its emotional moments, except maybe the stuff with Chewie and C-3PO stuff. That, I'll give it that was nice. It wants to be the end game of the series, but it clearly didn't plan out its story. While Endgame felt like a fun mess, this feels like a rushed mess, where they felt they had to correct the mistakes of the previous movies as if it was all Rian Johnson's fault that this new trilogy failed. Force Awakens was the introduction. Last Jedi was supposed to be the middle, but feels like another introduction. Now Rise of Skywalker had to be its own middle and end, and it just doesn't work. The only thing holding this new trilogy together is Kylo Ren, and he gets done dirty the entire time. Star Wars shines the most when it comes to their TV shows. The original Clone Wars, the micro series one, the Clone Wars show that came out later, Rebels got pretty good near the end, and the new Mandalorian show, which will get its own video, I promise. In all honesty, I think a lot of us just take Star Wars way too seriously. The original trilogy was a story about space rebels and space knights fighting space Nazis. It's really goofy. I don't understand the stock we put into this, to be honest. Why are we making anti-SJW videos about a movie where space virgins throw hands with space Stalin? How is feminism and inclusion ruining this franchise? You know what's ruining Star Wars? Not the SJWs, not the feminists. It's bad writing, lack of creativity, and a lack of direction. The Mandalorian is pretty good for the most part. It's all written by one guy who has a specific vision and direction he wants it to go. Same for the Clone Wars shows. The Star Wars movies' biggest problem is that there are too many people with their hands in the pot, and very few people want to take chances and do something interesting and different. People would lose their minds for an Old Republic movie, or just anything that doesn't have to do with the Empire and the Skywalkers. Hell, give us a crime movie about a botched spice run. Like Reservoir Dogs, but in space. That sounds a little bit interesting. If you feel like you gotta give us a movie within the main timeline, why not have it set during the time where the Jedi were being hunted by the Inquisitors? That way we could still get Vader in his prime. You could introduce some new Jedis for those, who need Star Wars to have the swords and shit clanging at each other. I mean, these would blow everyone's ovaries out of their dicks. But it's Disney, and that might be too dark. Look, we need to be honest with ourselves. The best thing about these movies is Empire Strikes Back. Every movie after that has either been plain bad or disappointing, which makes me believe that this was all a fluke. Empire was lightning in a bottle that they've been trying to recreate ever since and have failed every single time. Then again, maybe I'm just a grouch that hates everything. As much as I love to bitch and moan, at least The Mandalorian's good. We get that, at least. For now, anyway. For now.